Ooh.
And astonishing goal. That's the way to do it. Herrera. Ibrahimovic! With 3.5 minutes to play. Now Di Maria wants it back, gets it back. Fantastic.
That's the luck of the bounce off Gaston Ramirez.
Top try!
What a day this is turning out to be for Manchester United.
Mason Greenwood hits the spot.
In he goes towards Muriel. What a save, David De Gea. Brilliant save.
Dan James. Dream debut. Daniel James.
Hello and welcome back to the United Devils podcast. This week we are going to be discussing United's winless brace of games in the 3-1 defeat to Chelsea in the semi-final of the FA Cup and their 1-1 draw at home to West Ham before previewing the final day of the Premier League season, which is set to happen on Sunday with Manchester United's trip to Leicester, obviously going to set them up either for Champions League football or Europa League misery again. With me today, I welcome back Suraj, and obviously it's been a hard week for most United fans in the fact that obviously Liverpool were awarded the Premier League yesterday, and United have not only been knocked out of the FA Cup, but were really rather awful, you have to say, in their draw with West Ham. I mean, let's just talk straight up into the FA Cup game. Going into that game, when you saw the lineups, what was your immediate reaction?
I was not pleased at all. I expected a full-strength lineup, and it was far from it. I didn't get why we had to bench Mason Greenwood, Martial, and Pogba, because that's pretty much Pogba is pretty much he's as important as Bruno, I feel, even though he doesn't put up those numbers. So I thought Pogba should have played, but you can always raise the issue, the point that he's been playing a lot of games and he was burning out. So I wasn't too pleased or confident going into the game because of the lineup. I was right about it because we didn't have a lot of creative source.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, as you said, those players didn't play, and United did set up in a back five. Before we go into the issues involving substitutions, of course, United were looking slightly more attack-minded in the first 10 or 20 minutes of the game. And there was one potential decision that may have gone against United, especially when you think about how VAR probably could have reviewed it. And it was where Martial went through on goal and seemed to get the ball first, but Zuma kicked into him, through him, to get the ball. And it didn't look like he made any connection, but VAR didn't look at it because they didn't see it as a penalty because it happened outside the box. Looking back at it, do you think that could have, A, been a red card, and B, been something crucial that VAR has missed again? But this time, if you think about how rival fans call us Varchester United, do you think that is sort of something that has gone against United, really?
Yeah, I wear the Varchester United tag with pride, man. I don't care about the decisions going in our favor.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but when I looked at the Zuma challenge, when I played it back, I didn't think there was much in it to give either a penalty or a red card. Yeah, Zuma completely missed the ball, but from what I saw, Martial came from behind Zuma, and Zuma didn't really see him until he made contact with him, and he just flung his leg to get the ball out without noticing Martial creeping up on him. So that, for me, that wasn't a game-changing moment because Chelsea really played us out of the park that day.
Yeah, no, I mean that is undebatable. Really, Chelsea did do fantastically well. Another potentially game-changing moment was obviously when Eric Bailly came off for Martial. Do you think that would have made a difference in the game, or do you think that the fact is that United had to change from a back five, which matched Chelsea, to a back four? Do you think at all that would have made a difference?
To be fair, I think when we moved to a back four and we made our substitutions, we were at our strongest. So I feel for Bai, who had to go through that. But I think our best moments came, well, I can't really say best moments when practically nothing, but we seemed like more of a unit when we had all our substitutions in and we switched to the 4-2-3-1.
Well, yeah, of course. Thank you. Yeah, and obviously all 3 goals for Chelsea did come after that substitution. And to be fair, while you can say Chelsea did boss us defensively, they bossed us in the midfield, it was really our own problems that caused the goals. And we'll talk about the first one. Many critics have claimed that it's Lindelof and De Gea's fault for that goal, and I think Brandon Williams gives the ball away in midfield, or maybe loses out in a battle between him and Azpilicueta. But let's just talk through that goal. As soon as it went in, what was your immediate reaction? Who were you? What were you thinking? Whose fault was it really that it happened?
Well, my first instinct was that it's De Gea's fault, and then when I watched it back the first time, I saw Lindelof was at fault as well, because you can't leave a striker like Giroud in that kind of position. You can't be behind him. You have to be ahead of him. Mm-hmm. And because Giroud is the kind of guy who thrives on getting the ball in the box and finishing it in one go, and we all know that, and we still let that happen. And yeah, De Gea was at fault there. It was an easily savable one, and it came at such a crucial time. We should have gone into halftime 0-0, come back fighting the second half. We could have gotten a result, but that was probably the worst time to concede, and it's even worse thinking that it came in the 53rd minute or something.
It was. You're right.
Yeah. So all in all, it was just crushing. And then when I watched it back the third time, I realized the ball should never have been crossed in the first place. But I think crosses are going to come, even though you can hold, I think it was Williams there, you can hold him culpable. But at the end of the day, he isn't the experienced defender, right? It's Lindelof. He should have been in front of, even if he wasn't in front of Giroud, he shouldn't have been bullied by Giroud there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's got to be Lindelof and De Gea for this one.
So you would say De Gea made an error. You wouldn't say that the fact is that it came off the outside of Giroud's boot and the spin took it away from him. You'd say he has to save that? Yeah,
definitely, because he did get a glove on it, right? And it just spilled away. So yeah, that is it. It was not even a very fast shot or something that De Gea couldn't get his glove on it. He got it and left it. So I think, he had to be saving that one.
Okay, thank you. Well, I mean, that one might be a 50-50 when it comes to that. But the next goal was certainly an error, a huge error from David De Gea. One we have seen him obviously concede before at Barcelona, and Mason Mount allowed to just wander into a dangerous area, not closed down by any of the midfielders or Lindelof or Maguire, and then trickled a shot past De Gea, who looked to try and catch it instead of push it away, and didn't reach out far enough, and essentially hit the tips of his fingers and rolled in. I mean, obviously, there's no excuse for for a mistake like that from someone who has been a fantastic goalkeeper for Manchester United for the last 5 or 6 years, probably even more, and of course one that is earning north of £350,000 a week. What would you say if you were Solskjaer after that mistake?
Well, first of all, I would have dropped De Gea, because as much as I love him, and I'm not one of those actively De Gea out guys who want him sold in the next window. I don't want him sold. I just want him to know that he's not undroppable. And I would have started Romero for the West Ham game. So, yeah, well, I think Solskjaer did a pretty decent job coming out and saying that, yeah, he's very mentally strong and he will deal with this. But De Gea's form is concerning. And, I don't really know what I would do if I was Solskjaer, because there's still a lot that goes in training that we don't know about. So, so if I just, at face value, if I had to say what I would have done with De Gea if I was Solskjaer, would be to drop De Gea to the bench and bring on Romero for the last 2 games.
Well, thank you. Of course, something that interesting stat. I can't remember who brought this up, but it does seem very clear that De Gea makes mistakes at the very start of moves. So at the start of games, at the start of or end of drinks breaks, at the end of halves or matches, or somewhere where he'd lose focus quite easily. And something that Peter Schmeichel actually brought up a couple of days ago was that David De Gea has become a goalkeeper that's now, instead of being tested on a regular basis, is now being tested rarely. But when he's being called upon, he's not coming up with those big saves that you have to say the likes of Alisson or Edison or Schmeichel himself was making when the defences were solid and barely tested throughout the game, but only called upon in very few stages. And he said it's one of the hardest transitions for any goalkeeper to make, is one way or the other, really. And that he needs to, it's something that can't be learnt in training. It can't be something that's done in a routine. It's just something that he's going to have to mentally deal with. So do you think it is something about that? Or do you think that he's just, obviously there's the other stat that he's not really been the same since that game against Portugal in the World Cup. So which way do you think it is? Do you think he's had his peak, or do you think that he's actually having to adapt his game to a different kind of role?
No, I saw the stat that you're talking about. He always concedes in the beginning or either his first shot on target, because, yeah, like you said, he's used to facing 10, 11 shots per game, but after we've strengthened our defense, he's been facing lesser shots, and that's probably leading him to be not as focused as he usually would have. No, I totally agree with that stat, because I mean, it's a stat, I can't agree or disagree. But I do agree that could be one reason why he is losing focus, is because he's not facing as many shots. Maybe you could look at Memphis Depay. When he was playing back in the Eredivisie, he was the center point for the entire team. All passes just blindly went to him. And then that's how he got his outrageous stats. And then when he came to United, he wasn't the only one. We were passing around to other guys as well and building play. So I think that really made him feel out of place, and he had to make do with those few chances that he got, as opposed to getting the ball all the time. So that's the thing, right? If De Gea is tested lesser, he needs to have a higher accuracy of saving. His output has to be higher, at a higher percentage. Same with the example I gave about Depay earlier. If he got the ball 10 times in 10 minutes and he made something out of it 6 times, that seems like a great start. But if you reduce that 10 to 2 and he produces half an attempt once, it's going to look really bad. So I think it's something like that. De Gea, I hope this offseason is good for him. He puts his head down, works, because 29, I think it's 30, right? Or he turns 30 next year. Or this November he turns 30, I'm not sure. But that's no age for a goalkeeper to start declining. I expected him to be playing till he's 35, 36. So I still back De Gea. I think he can turn his career around. I don't want him sold at all.
No, thank you. I totally agree with that. And I think that's a brilliant comparison to Memphis Depay. course, that's something very interesting you might have to see with maybe Jadon Sancho, who obviously does get the ball a lot for Dortmund. So maybe that will be something to consider for the future. But obviously, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Well, let's talk about the third goal. And while David De Gea could be at fault for the first two, really, the third one's all Harry Maguire, who got his feet in a right mess dealing with the attacker and bundled it past De Gea with no chance of stopping that for me. He really didn't cover himself in glory all game. Obviously missed a really, really good chance at the end of the half, I believe, or maybe at the beginning of the second half after Mount's goal. And then I don't know if you've seen the video. You might have remembered it while watching the game, where he literally takes the ball off Matic and tries to dribble alongside him, maybe linking arms hand in hand, trying to drive the ball, and just gives it straight to Alonso. He didn't have the best game, and obviously there have been questions raised as to whether he's actually improved this defence. I know there are some United fans who believe he actually has been more of a hindrance than relief. That the 80 million price tag was overvalued, which is probably based more on the market and Leicester's stubbornness than actual rating wise when you compare it to the likes of Van Dijk and Laporte and the ratings, the values given on the likes of Varane or even Sergio Ramos if you want to compare him. But of course, then there's also the fact is that did he deserve the captain's role? So I'll ask, well, firstly, do you think he was totally at fault? Oh, well, how bad was his game against Chelsea, really?
So I think he was really bad, because an FA Cup semi-finals, when you need your captain to step up, and your captain needs to have the best game. Like Roy Keane used to turn the games around in the Champions League semi-finals on his own. So we need a captain to step up. But I think it's a learning curve for the entire team. Solskjaer would have learned a lot of things. Players would have learned a lot of things. Maguire would have learned a lot of things. I think that's where one of the arguments arises that he's not good enough, is because he's played for Leicester, and that means he hasn't played a lot of semi-finals or finals. So maybe he wasn't very sure about how to lead the team, because he himself hasn't been in that situation before. But I'm going to deny all day long that he was a waste of money, because he definitely isn't. Maybe 80 million is a bit too much, but United can afford it, so who cares? But he's definitely improved our defense. We've conceded the second least goals in the Premier League after, obviously, Liverpool. And I think even all around Europe, we've conceded the least amount of goals after PSG and Liverpool. So I think last season we were 7th or 8th in the same stat. So he definitely has improved the defense. And I still think we need another centre back for depth. But I think Maguire can turn out to be a great captain and leader. But they obviously, I think a certain element of the winning killer mentality is missing from the squad. And when we do get that, I think it's going to take our game to another level.
Yeah. I do agree. I think we definitely do need that. Potentially, however you'd like to call it, fifth centre back. But obviously, Bailly is back in training, maybe light training, but probably won't feature against Leicester. Tuanzebe is out till September, and obviously we're expecting to sell the likes of Jones, Rojo, and Smalling in the summer, or at least make sure they aren't going to be playing for United. And there are players that are linked, centre backs that are linked, Upamecano, Koulibaly, but it seems that City have taken over on that one. Nathan Ake, who again City have been linked with, and even young Rodon from Swansea, but nothing concrete yet. You are right. I think he has demonstrated how important the signing was, and possibly how important the signing would have been a season before. Obviously, United did concede 54 goals in the Premier League last season. We've only conceded 36 this season, which is a substantial decrease in goals. Obviously, United haven't lost by more than 2 goals in any Premier League game, and have only conceded 3 goals on 3 separate occasions in all competitions against Chelsea, Manchester City, and obviously the 3-3 draw at Bramall Lane against Sheffield United. What a mighty three, you have to say. But of course, it has shown how United have been sort of better overall. But that was probably his worst game for United, probably on the same tier as the Crystal Palace game, in which both him and Lindelof basically just lost all forms of communication with each other. Won't really talk more about that FA Cup game because obviously we know after those goals, really, United just deflated. And while they did get that good chance, Martial obviously being one of the more lively players, and Fernandes slotting home that penalty, it was really just a consolation. You thought maybe United could get back in it, but Chelsea just held their ground and actually played a lot better after that. But then, of course, United then had to go back to Old Trafford and host West Ham in their final game of final home game of the Premier League season, knowing that a win would take them to third, with Liverpool playing Chelsea later that day and Leicester dropping points, or dropping all 3 points, against Tottenham a few hours before the FA Cup semi-final. United really, throughout the game, were really stale. Obviously made a couple changes. They brought back most of the first team players that you would have Suraj, you said you wanted to see playing in the semi-final, except for Wan-Bissaka for Fosu Mensah, who came in for his second Premier League game running. And really it was, Martial tested Fabianski, but it was a narrow shot. And really United was sloppy for most of the half, and obviously gave away that penalty late in the first half. What did you think of that penalty call? Did you think it was a stonewall penalty?
Yeah, definitely, man.
Okay.
He just lifted his. It was a Luis Suarez-esque at the 2010 World Cup.
The World Cup.
Yeah, but there's a huge difference. Okay, so I don't personally blame De Gea because he acted in self-defense, and I get the whole he's a well-paid player and whatnot. But come on, he's still human, man. And did you see the speed at which the ball was?
Yeah, it was a rocket from Declan Rice. Yeah. You have to say.
Anybody would. Okay, well, I'm saying anybody, but it is first instinct to block your head, and then people are saying he was trying to pass it off as a head injury. But if you've played football and the ball even hits your hand at that speed, your entire body rattles for a bit. So I completely understand what happened there. He didn't do it intentionally, so yeah, we just had to get on with it, and we didn't.
Yeah, you're right. I know I've had a fair few footballs hit in my face, but it is sort of a natural knee-jerk reaction to block the ball, especially when you're not trained to save the ball with your hands, like obviously goalkeepers. But yeah, we've seen it a couple times this season where players have actually handled the ball exactly how Pogba did. Obviously, De Bruyne in the free kick wall against Leicester, which they eventually went on to win 1-0. I believe another example was Richarlison, pretty much similar place to Paul Pogba. But they weren't given because it was obviously they made the excuse that they were blocking their face. So this is probably another reason why the handball rule in the Premier League, or I think it's actually in all footballing rules in the top flight divisions, needs to be changed, because there are inconsistencies and things they haven't actually thought of that VAR can't really do much about. Would you say that then if they were to change the rules, they should say that blocking your face is fine as long as it doesn't make your body bigger? Or do you think that they should just say that it hits your hand and that's the end of it?
No, I think it's got to be, if your body is if your hands are within the frame of your body, it shouldn't really be a penalty. And I think De Gea's hand was, Pogba's hand was outstretched a little bit. So, but so was De Bruyne's, and I think who was it at Everton? I think it was Richarlison. Yeah, so those should have been penalties as well. That's not saying that De Gea's. Why am I saying De Gea? That's not saying that Pogba's handball shouldn't have been a penalty. it's just saying that those should have been penalties too.
Mhm.
So yeah, nobody's gonna. People are just gonna continue calling us Rochester United anyway. So
Well, one can hope, but we know the fickle nature of football Twitter. Of course, United had it all to do in the second half and made a half-time change. Obviously, Fosu-Mensah did get a yellow card late in that half as well, and Wan-Bissaka came on and he made a big difference down United's right. He did actually have a few. He actually did create a few chances, but for the most part, United were lethargic, but did get a goal 10 minutes after half-time. Another fantastic goal from Mason Greenwood. His 10th Premier League goal and 17th in all competitions, making him the highest scoring youngster in United's history, joint with Wayne Rooney, amongst others that I can't remember at this point in time, but has done really well yet again. Looks like he's recovered from that injury suffered against Southampton. But how would you describe United's second half overall? Do you think they looked the better team?
Yeah, we were a really good side, but the unfortunate part is that we let West Ham into the game as well. It's not like our defense was rock solid and we just kept on mercilessly attacking West Ham. It was like we attack and then we let you attack and then we attack again. And one thing that really annoyed me is when players start lining up for shots outside our box, get in the way, don't move away. I don't know if you, I'm not sure if you remember that Declan Rice shot that he was running towards a box and he was lining up a shot and everyone was literally moving away from him.
Yeah.
And he was just inches wide. Had that gone in, it would have been an outrage. But people are just running away from him. I don't know why. Just block the shot.
Yeah.
And Rice is known for such attempts. So I really and they missed a good chance from a corner where I think Antonio headed it wide. So I wouldn't say we were the better team by a mile or anything because they had their chances and they messed it up. I think we deserved a 1-1 and that's what we got.
Thank you. Yeah. Of course, United did make 2 substitutions in that game, obviously not trusting the likes of James, Fred, McTominay, Mata or Lingard to make an impact. Well, definitely not Lingard after that Palace game, blimey. But I mean, it does really highlight the fact is that our depth is not really as good as it should be. It's something that all title-winning seasons have, is a lot of squad depth or players that can basically play 38 games out of 38. And it seems that we have neither really. Obviously, the kind of speed in which the Premier League is trying to be wrapped up after lockdown has in the last few games impacted our players' fitness and form. I think Fernandes hasn't really been at his best since probably the Villa game, and even then we were a bit shaky. Pogba's looks like he's dropped off. Rashford had a lively game against Palace, but was really poor in the last 2 matches. Martial's had a bit of a rest, so he's looked bright, and so's Greenwood, really. But Matic has been on and off, really. And it is showing that our form is dropping due to maybe a lack of fitness, and obviously a lack of rotation. So how important is it that we get players like Jack Grealish or maybe even Declan Rice and definitely a new centre-back and potentially a striker, and obviously the incoming Jadon Sancho reports getting ever louder. How important is it that we get at least 3 signings in this summer?
Yeah, we need some really good signings as reinforcements, because imagine we had Grealish playing against West Ham. He'd be amazing, actually. And we could have given quite a few players. I mean, I say Grealish, but I mean players like Grealish. Second choice, but really good second choice players. Imagine they were playing and then we had Bruno Pogba well rested for the game against Leicester, which is one reason why I think the Sunday game isn't going to be as straightforward, because they've had a week's rest and I think we'll be having 3 days of rest. So we really need some reinforcements. We probably need another left back, uh, maybe a CDM like Rice. Rice been amazing, and I'd love to have Grealish, but I don't think Grealish is good enough to be starting week in week out. He's probably great to rotate, when
Yeah.
like a big game's coming up and we have some pointless away game. Well, not pointless, but if we have some away game that,
Less essential.
yeah, which Grealish would easily be able to handle. So we could
Sure.
just give him a run in it, and Pogba and sorry, not Pogba, but say Fernandes could stay back in Manchester and recuperate and whatnot.
Yeah, of course. Well, of course, I think it's fair to say Jack Grealish's departure from Aston Villa would be highly dependent on Villa getting relegated or not. And that is obviously still up for grabs. They're, of course, above Watford as it stands going into the final game. And we'll talk about that now because obviously we made a series of predictions about relegation throughout the season. We made one at the start, I think a couple throughout, more recently one just before lockdown ended. For the Premier League anyway. And it's now down to three teams: Watford, Aston Villa, and Bournemouth. And really, I would have to say Bournemouth have, I think, a tricky game coming up. It's really between Aston Villa, who play West Ham on the final day of the season at the London Stadium, and of course Watford will be away to Arsenal. Bournemouth do obviously have a chance, but they are playing against Everton at Goodison Park, and I think really if they are going to get a win in both sides that they're competing against to drop a substantial number of, they have to both lose, and by a fair goal margin, it would be unlikely for Bournemouth to get past. So let's talk about just Watford and Aston Villa. Of the two, who do you see staying up?
It's a tough one. I think Aston Villa will stay up, but I said the same thing about Brighton, and now they're practically safe. I think Aston Villa will stay up because Watford have to travel to Arsenal, and I don't think Arteta will let them lose to Villa and Watford back to back. And I think Arsenal's home record's pretty good, if I'm not wrong. They beat Liverpool at home, they drew to Leicester, they beat Norwich 4-0. So I think the home record's pretty good. So I don't see them losing this game. So unfortunately, I think Watford's going to go down. Plus, they sacked the manager. I don't know why they did that at this stage. So I believe there's going to be some unrest. And that's not going to be good for them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Arsenal haven't actually lost at home since that Olympiacos exit in February. But yeah, I think the fact is, I think Watford will lose more heavily to Arsenal than Villa will to West Ham if both are to lose either way. And obviously Villa are only separated by a single point of goal difference. So it is very tight at the bottom of the Premier League. And honestly, if they both lose and Bournemouth win, it could push them both down. Of course, if Villa do stay up, Grealish said it's hinted that he is going to stay for at least another season at his hometown. Would you then, because obviously then Watford would be the team to go down, would you then say that we should probably go for someone like Ismail Assar?
He's all right. But I don't know how much difference would he make to our squad? I don't think he'll make the same impact as say Grealish would. I'd probably rather take Doucouré or someone to slot in midfield. But then even he'd have to compete with someone like Fred. Their fullbacks are quite good, if I'm not wrong. Firmino and Messina. But again, that's a really tough one. I don't know who I'd take from their Watford squad if they went down.
Anyone from Bournemouth?
Oh, David Brooks looks good. How old is Stanislas?
I think
Is
he's
it
about
30?
29.
Oh no, then I might give him a miss.
I think there would be
Uh,
frank words between him and Harry Maguire if he were to join. But I mean, obviously there's Nathan Ake, who's obviously been linked with the
yeah,
move away, and Lloyd Kelly actually played very well at Old Trafford despite conceding 5. I think that was mostly due to the wide players. But of course, Joshua King is linked with the move and has actually still not signed a new deal. He signed the extension till the end of the season, unlike his former teammate Ryan Fraser, who has left the club and is looking for a new club, actually. But ones to consider for sure. Obviously, going into we'll look more ahead to the top 4 or maybe even top 6 because, of course, Manchester United are after that Chelsea and Liverpool match, which finished 5-3 to Liverpool as they lifted the trophy. United did actually are going into this final game at 3rd place, albeit only by goal difference, if I'm not mistaken, and only 1 point behind Leicester in 5th, and I think 15 goals behind Chelsea in 4th. Is all obviously balanced on a knife edge as United do have to play Leicester and Chelsea host Wolves, who are looking to secure a guaranteed spot for Europe. Of course, they do need to win and make sure that Spurs can't catch up to them. Spurs, who are playing Crystal Palace on the final day, will probably be looking for another win after a really good performance against Leicester. But do you think Wolves will cause Chelsea problems and knock a few points off the Blues?
Before I answer you, just wanted to backtrack. I forgot to mention Ryan Fraser. I think he wanted out as well.
Yeah.
He'd be a pretty decent dribbler at United. Second choice, obviously, or even third. Anyway, coming back to this, I think, Wolves are a really difficult side. And then I love watching Wolves because they're so well organized. And I just love how they set up. And Raul Jimenez is one of my favorite players. And who's that wing back? Matt Doherty. They're just so good, and Adama Traore. Plus, Chelsea have the same situation that we do. Wolves are well rested, and they absolutely need a win. And Nuno is gonna really make sure they're up for this one, and I hope they're up for this one because on their day, Wolves can beat anyone in the league. And they're probably watching the game, watch the game against Liverpool and thinking that we can hurt them because Chelsea, even though they turned us over, they aren't that good. They're good they're good attacking wise, but when it comes to defense, they're not really that good. And maybe if you put someone like Jimenez constantly causing troubles in the box with the likes of, say, Rudiger trying to mark him, it's going to be really difficult for them. And they put in a lot of crosses. So that's another thing they got to look out for. Is it home or away?
It's at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, Stamford Bridge. So that probably works in Chelsea's favor. But I think since January, United have conceded the least amount of goals and Wolves have conceded the second least amount of goals. And I think Chelsea have conceded one of the most number of goals since that period. So I'm backing Wolves for this one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I totally agree. I think Wolves have conceded the 5th least number of goals in the Premier League so far, and Chelsea have actually conceded as many goals as last season United did after that disastrous run of form at the end of the season, and they conceded 54 goals. Chelsea have actually got that with a final game to go. And while this isn't relevant to Stamford Bridge, Chelsea have actually only got 1 clean sheet away from home this season. I can't recall where they actually managed to do that, but I think it might have been against Tottenham. But nonetheless, I mean, it just demonstrates just that they're not all quite there. despite what other kind of sports websites like Sky Sports and ESPN have said that if Lampard's not to blame for Chelsea's losses, it's their squad. But obviously, when it happens to the likes of Solskjaer or Arteta, it's due to their inabilities to compete as managers, which I found quite baffling, given the fact that they're all in very similar circumstances. Former players taking over as managers, limited experience as actual managers at the top flight, and really all three squads need revamping in the summer, especially Arsenal's. Really, obviously, they have got to the FA Cup final, but they are set to finish no higher than 9th, if I'm not mistaken. So that's obviously something they need to work on. But yeah, you're quite right. I think Wolves will cause trouble. They're really well drilled at the back, and I think they know how important this game is for their European qualification. Obviously, they could qualify for the Champions League if they do win the Europa League. But of course, we'll have to face Leverkusen and or United along the way, or even Sevilla or Roma as well. So we'll have to see how that turns out starting on the 5th of August. But until then, we've got to focus on Leicester. So Sunday is the big game. How do you see Ole Gunnar Solskjaer lining up this team? Do you think it will be a back 4 or back 5 that Leicester have been using since Soyuncu's red card?
I think no matter what, just don't set up for a draw, because I don't trust our defense. Wadi's going to run in behind and maybe score a goal. So I think we have to get a couple of early goals in there, which we totally can, because we started off really well against West Ham and we got 2 shots on target in the first 5 minutes or something from Greenwood and Martial. So we can totally do that. So I'd go for the strongest lineup, or back 4. I hope Luke Shaw is back, because I wouldn't trust Brandon Williams for such an important game. I hope Luke Shaw is back in there, and Bissaka's got to be there, and then obviously Rashford, Martial, Greenwood, and our midfield 3, Matic, Pogba, and Bruno.
Obviously, United have had 3 days. Well, they will have had 3 days to train, which is more than they've had for the last 3 or 4 matches, I believe. Only having 2 days in between each game since the Southampton draw at Old Trafford. Would you back United to get the win, or would you say that they are going to fall short and draw, or even more shockingly lose?
I'm not sure. I really can't call this one. If you look at it, this is perfectly set up for us to lose, because United haven't lost in a long time and we are dipping. So, but no, I think we will manage a result and we will make top 4. We just need 1 point, right?
Yeah, we only need 1 point, because a point would take us 1 point away from Leicester, regardless of what happens to Chelsea. But if both sides do draw Leicester and United, and Chelsea lose to Wolves, it would be Chelsea playing Europa League next season, which would be quite nice, actually. I think that would probably be the preferred.
I'd take a draw if that was the case. I'd love to see them take Werner, Havertz, and whatnot to Israel and play Europa League.
Yeah, and then they'll have to play Kepa, because honestly, that's his level. But before we finish today, there's obviously the biggest news is that not only did Liverpool finally lift the title after 30 years of hurt, but Leeds have confirmed that they are going to be back in the Premier League after a 16-year absence, and lifted the Championship trophy after their win on the final day of the season yesterday. Obviously, 2 of United's biggest rivals down the years, throughout the decades, really, and What do you think? I mean, obviously the Leeds one will be more of a let's see what we've got. We're going to have an old-fashioned game back on our hands, but the Liverpool one is a massive blow, and obviously we've talked about it when they did win the title after that Chelsea defeat. After Manchester City were defeated by Chelsea. But has it really hit you? Do you think it will have hit the manager and the players, and hopefully try and make sure they galvanise the team ready for next season?
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. This season there was no winner.
It all got called off, didn't it? It all got called off.
Yeah.
About a few
We're just
months
playing
ago.
friendlies.
Yeah. Something called the coronavirus, I think. I can't quite remember what that was called. Yeah, something like that.
Some pandemic or something. Yeah, some people were coughing. But I mean, if this isn't a wake-up call for not just the players but the board and Woodward and everyone, I think I just got a notification saying United will be looking for a director of football, and just a few minutes later, I got another notification saying that we're not really looking for a director of football. I don't know what's up with that. So these are the things that we can't take for granted anymore, because Liverpool have shown what a club can do if you really trust a manager. And so we need to do something like that. We need to get a director of football in, make the right decisions, and there's no reason why we can't get there.
Yeah. I mean, I think the fact is that, you know, Liverpool obviously have always been pushing for that title since their last win in 1990, and they've never really come. They've obviously never come top until now. They've obviously challenged famously last year and in the 2013-14 season, and missed it by the slimmest of margins in both seasons, and it's finally happened. And really, it doesn't only show that Liverpool have overtaken United, it shows how far they've overtaken United by in the last 7 years, really. Obviously, since the departure of Sir Alex, things haven't got better overall. The trophy haul's been slim. Only 3 proper trophies, you can say, and 2 community shields. And it just demonstrates that things can change in the blink of an eye. Or really, to be fair, after watching some of the football, it's felt like years and years. But it's just about making sure that United can be a title challenging team. They don't have to win the title next season. They just have to look like they can. And obviously, you're right. The board needs to get on their bike, get that director of football that's been reported. Obviously, that this could all be speculation that is brought about to try and gain some positivity after potentially 2 disappointing results. But it's up to the board, it's up to the chairman and the owners to make sure that United can have the money to obviously compete. And we'll have to see where that leaves us. Actually, I have just seen a report that Luke Shaw has gone into training and has actually driven himself after having to be driven in by his partner the last few days even. And that is obviously a positive sign. We'll have to see whether he is going to be fit for the match. I'm afraid that is all we have time for this week. Thank you for listening, and thank you to Suraj for joining me. It's a pleasure as always.
Yeah, pleasure's all mine.
And hopefully we will both be celebrating Champions League qualification on Sunday evening as United do look to face Leicester in the final game of the season. And then we will be moving on to the Europa League in a couple weeks' time. Obviously, starting on the 5th of August, all the games will be live watch-alongs on our YouTube channel. For the moment, if you have any questions or topics you would like for us to discuss, then comment below on the YouTube video or on the Twitter or Facebook post, and we'll give you a live shout out on the podcast and answer your questions. But if you've enjoyed this, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and follow us on Twitter for more of our content.